Hello and welcome to How to Get Government Grants from the Government Funding and Use series written by Christopher Dixon. In this module we're going to go setting up for grants.gov. Now grants.gov is the premier reservoir for grants in the United States of America. What it does is it has federal grants, it has state grants, and it even now has privately funded grants. Now these can help individuals or organizations. But the reason we're going to talk about setting up as a business is because basically 95 to maybe even 98% of all grants are not for individuals. The vast majority of grants are actually for businesses and organizations. Now, setting yourself up as an organization is actually fairly simple, but the level of complexity increases. However, it opens the door to the vast majority of grants. It does mean to some degree you should maintain some business operations, but when you're talking about the ability to apply for a $6 million grant, one has to expect some level of complicity. In my entire series, I do not hold you back from the realities. The reality is that if you want to be able to go out and put your name on the dotted line for a $6 million grant, you have to be willing to go through copious, almost to some degree, copious amounts of paperwork. That's the reality. The flip side is you only need one person to say yes. That's the other reality. That's the good part. So we're going to talk about how to apply, all the different levels that you have to go through, the registrations, and then finally the conclusion. Okay, why set up as an individual? Now, so few grants go to individuals. Here's an example. If you were to go out to grants.gov today and merely type in individual, you'll probably come back with no more than 25, but more than likely 4 to 7 grants. If you were to go out there and type in small business, you would probably get back between 900 to 2,000 grants. Most grants to individuals are for education, and a lot of them, if they're on the federal level, tend to be for graduate education. So a lot of those grants are not even for undergrad, which is what the majority of the population is seeking to get. There are a lot of side benefits, like for instance, in order to go through this process, you have to get a DMB number, and the DMB number can be used for business credit, which opens the door to another credit line outside of the credit line that you currently have attached to your Social Security number. Did you know that? Most people don't. As a business, also setting up properly protects you from any form of lawsuit, and that's one of the core protections to setting up as a business. That means that you're outside of yourself as an individual, and you gain a lot more capabilities. And we also recommend that you operate your business normally, that you're not just setting up a shell business, but you actually are going to operate it. So all throughout the course we recommend ethical behavior. Okay? Under grants.gov, we also go into what you should apply for, what you should not apply for. There are a lot of different requirements, like eligibility requirements or matching requirements. In a matching grant, that means you have to have, say for instance, if you want to apply for a $10,000 grant, that means you should have $10,000 that you are willing to donate, and some of that can be in-kind donations. We don't really talk a lot about in-kind donations, but in-kind donations means that you can match that $10,000 perhaps in property, perhaps in labor hours, but to some degree you must match that $10,000. We focus on non-matching grants, which typically means to some degree it's a total gift. There are a lot of things that a lot of other courses don't necessarily go into, like what we just mentioned, and some of the other things are some of the stiff requirements. There are a lot of stiff requirements to even being able to apply for a grant, and that's just the reality. A lot of other courses love to give you just a grocery list of grants, and then once you go in there, you take that grant, you look it up, you find out you're not eligible. And one of the leading reasons people are not eligible is because they're not set up as an organization, which means you actually have to be operating as an organization, which we cover all that in here. There are a lot of other smaller grants that you can get, like home improvement grants. People love to talk about the good old-fashioned home improvement grant. A lot of those are connected to urban areas, and again, a lot of them have very stiff requirements. Like a lot of the home improvement grants tend to go to the people who are in the elderly category, and they also tend to go to people with a very low incomes. And when I say very low incomes, I mean less than $10,000 a year. Very few people actually fall into those categories. And the reality is, this is why most people are frustrated with the common grant courses. So what we walk you through is we walk you through how to apply for grants online. That means you actually go out onto the web, you have all of the registrations completed, you have the EIN, the state, the CCR, the DUNS, and the credential registration for grants.gov. And you can go in and apply through grants.gov for an organization, not as an individual. As an individual, there'll be very few things coming through, and that's just the reality. And then online through grants.gov, you actually get an answer as to whether or not your grant was awarded to you, all through the web. And that's what our course and our series specializes in. So in conclusion, by the time you get done with the Government Funding and Use series, you'll be able to apply online for grants. You will know the granting process. Included is also templates, which means that you can take these documents, you can fill them out, and for some of the grants that are more loosely organized, where they really don't give you a layout for how the document should be established, you can use one of our templates and submit online. And then you gain knowledge from people who are professional grant writers or professional business writers, and they're in the field. So the Government Funding and Use series is set up as a book. There's the templates and CD-ROM that I mentioned that arrives on CD-ROM. There's an actual DVD that takes you through applying and setting up these registrations step by step online. And then there's the workbook. The workbook shows you how to build a grant document piece by piece by piece. And you literally can order the workbook and write in and fill in each section. And then when you get to the end, you have your entire grant document written out. And then there's the teacher's edition. It's possible to actually do an entire grant class using the workbook and the teacher's edition. So if you have the workbook in the teacher's edition, you order 30 copies of the workbook and simply the teacher's edition, you can teach a grant class. And since the DVD is there, you can even stop the class, pop in the DVD, and let your students watch the DVD for an hour. Okay, all these things are available at Amazon.com. You can purchase them, and you're off to the races. Thank you.